Hold up. Okay, wait. No. No, hold on. Wait. Nope. Okay, we need to change the threads of fate, chat. No. We need to go into the past. Where did it all go wrong? Welcome, everyone. It's Chobra, and it's that time of the year. That's right. It's time to do our Pickems again, and once we start, we don't stop all the way until October. It's just Pickems back to back to back. But VCT Pacific kicks off in 12 or 11 days, depending on your time zone. So it's creeping up on us, less than 2 weeks, and we have to find out who's actually going to win it and who's actually going to go to Masters Bangkok. Only 2 teams are going to go, 2 teams in the grand finals. Now, before we get started, we're going to take a quick look at kind of what my initial thoughts were of the rosters during the offseason, and then we will find out if anything has changed as I look at the bracket, because guess what? This bracket is insane. The rematches, they're all over the place. So let's dive right in and see where we were at beforehand. Okay, this is where I'd ranked the teams when they had announced their rosters. So Gen G at the top. I put Gen G at the top? I actually don't remember doing that. Does anybody remember me doing that? I don't think this is real. That is true. This was way too early. We hadn't seen any games from any of these rosters yet. This was just after it was announced. But Gen G, T1, Paper X. Honestly, other than, the only thing I'm too shocked about is Gen G at number 1, just because now we've seen the power of T1 and Paper X in the offseason. But everything else, I don't know if it has changed too much for me personally. Now, this was a bit more reasonable, because this was right after we did it with Plat Chat. We had seen a little bit of the offseason, but this was like the worldwide tier list, so it's a bit harder to read through. But I still ranked like Gen G and Paper X much higher. But this was like overall, I think, for the year that we were thinking in Plat Chat. So I was going off of that, just overall strength of how I think these teams will look on average in 2025. Again, not too shocking. Everything pretty in line with what we had in the early looks of the roster. So this is just to give you a bit of a primer on where I'm coming from. All right. So what you can glean from this before we jump into the Pickems, and this hasn't really changed, is that I have some strong favorites, right? Like T1, Paper X, and Gen G are probably my strong favorites. Now, and then I would say there are like the contenders where I think they could very well go to Masters Bangkok. I think teams there would be, for instance, DRX. I think I would still put them there, even with the roster change. Things like that. So I would put Talon there. I would put RQ there, right? Teams that I think can kind of punch above. I would put Nongshim there. So there's kind of these big groups. All right. So with that all in mind, that's great. Enough yapping. Let's get to picking. All right. We do have a double elimination bracket, which that part is exciting, right? It's not just some weird groups with weird buys, right? RQ's not going to get completely robbed again. This time it's fair and square until we realize they probably have to play Gen G at some point again in this bracket. But it's a double elimination bracket. The top 2 teams in the grand finals right here will be going to Masters Bangkok. Let's go through it. Boom versus T1. This is an easy one. Sorry, Boom Esports. T1, I think, is looking like one of the strongest teams in Pacific right now. And I would say, actually, I think for the beginning part of the year, T1 will be one of the strongest teams. I would argue teams like Gen G and DRX, right, and some of the other teams as well could grow into more. Like, for instance, I think Global Esports could continue growing, right, stronger and stronger as the year goes. That's what I would expect from that team, is to climb the ranks. But for kickoff and maybe even the beginning of Split 1 or Stage 1, I would argue that T1 is right up there. They're in top 2 for sure for me. So Boom Esports. Listen, Boom Esports, yeah, they're fine. They're fine. They're a good team. It's just that T1's really strong. So T1 it is. Also, we haven't really seen them yet. We'll get a glimpse of them at Predator League this weekend, but that's mostly best of ones. But at least we'll see if they look like really messy still or not. So, all right. Let's see. Global Esports versus Team Secret. This one I'm going to come back to. We're going to take a rain check on that. We're going to jump all the way down to the bottom of the bracket, because this one, I also have no reason to overthink this. It's Nongshim Red Force for me. For those who have been completely living under the rock, and or you've only been playing Path of Exile 2 during the entire offseason, Nongshim Red Force is the old SPG. They're the team that won Ascension Pacific. And they haven't made any roster changes. They did, the assistant coach that joined them just for Ascension, who used to be the coach for SLT Seongnam, he is no longer with them. He just had a short-term contract with them for the event. He's actually now with T1 Academy, so we'll see what he does over there. So we haven't heard of any like additional coaching staff or anything like that for Nongshim Red Force, but it's still the core, it's still the same team that won Challengers Korea. It's still the same team that won Ascension Pacific, and they just look really good. And now the same question that gets brought up every time is going to come up. Why do people rank Nongshim and Boom Esports so differently? And the answer to that is not going to be in this video, but we'll talk about it later. But it's mostly the how they do it, right? It's how they play. It's not just the score that we care about. I think, listen, Nongshim is really good at coming up with compositions. I think they're very good at understanding the meta and the game and then playing it to their advantage. Like, they're very good at coming up with compositions or set plays that, work for them, and maybe they'll take adaptations that work for them. And if it has weaknesses, they're very cognizant of that, right? They understand that, well, at this point we just have to take aim duels. Like, that's just how our comp plays, things like that. So I think Nongshim is gonna be pretty strong going into like a fresh meta. They're gonna come up with some of their own stuff. I don't think they're as reliant on anting their opponents as heavily, whereas some other teams in Pacific are. So I think they should have a pretty good leg up against Zeta Division. There's not much to say about Zeta Division other than I was actually hoping they would be a bit stronger during the offseason. I was hoping they would show a bit more, but DFM ended up being the team that did that for Japan. But I would argue that the roster for Zeta is still looking pretty promising, especially just like within the Japanese scene. But after what we've seen, it's hard to like hype them up as much. I'm not going to put them down. I think the hype has kind of gone to the sideline a bit for me. Let's just move right on up. DFM versus RQ. Everybody. I get it. DFM took a match from Paper X. I get it. Listen, I understand that it's very exciting to be a DFM fan right now, which, by the way, I can't imagine that a single one of you were a DFM fan before. So don't even try to pretend, okay? The only person that I'll give that medal to is maybe arguably Paper Thin. And even then, I would have my suspicions. But none of you are actual DFM fans before that. However, it is true that DFM looks really good. They looked really good. And the firepower seemed to be there. They seem to have a good understanding of just, basic macro. They seem to have some good teamwork. May's no longer running in alone. It looks very, very good and very, very fun to watch. But RQ needs this, chat. RQ needs this revenge, okay? And they're fully capable. Here's the thing, is that this isn't actually about DFM being weak. I just don't think RQ is going to fold over and die. All right? RQ's going to move on. Just to talk objectively about RQ a little bit, I think I still hold by the fact that I would argue that the last we saw of them still proved that they still have a bit of a identity confusion, right? Like, are we a snappier skirmish team? Are we a slow and steady macro team? Are we a set execute team, right? Like, not that you have to do only that, but you do have to have a go-to default style. And that doesn't mean like just a strategy has to have a default, but you have to have a go-through flowchart so that when push comes to shove, things are kind of automated. And I would say that RQ lacks that a bit still. My hope is that I would think that a month and a half, RQ has cleaned that up a bit more. just a bit. I'm not asking for perfection. Just a bit more. They are very, very aware of it. I'm sure they're very aware of it. But I think Kush joining has definitely helped. It's definitely helped the firepower consistency, I would say. I think Kush being another person who can kind of take the round by its horns is going to help them a lot. But it's not enough to make them just off of that be like, okay, they're a consistent winner now. I do think they still need a little bit more team identity. But I'm hoping that Kush can be the one that helps change that a bit more as well. Now, do you think, are you full Delulu or half Delulu? I do think this would be a 2-1, which is unfortunate for RQ because they just, it's always 2-1s for them. They're truly the new DRX, but I do think it's going to be a tight match. Listen, I don't think this is like I'm not voting for RQ here just because I think they're going to stomp them. I don't think they will. I think DFM will put up a fight. I think it will be a very close game, actually. I think it'll be a 2-1. You know, even if it's not all overtimes, I think we'll look at it and be like, well, this could have really gone either way. Like, even if it's a 13-7, it would have, you know, it probably comes down to like 1 or 2 rounds in the middle or early on. I mean, this is all also speculation because the meta is still shifting, in my opinion. I think it very well can shift a bit more going into the beginning of kickoff. Also, supposedly, the new agent's going to be available for kickoff, which, like, I don't know what that does for us. I don't think that does too much for these two teams. I think that does a lot for some of these other teams, but we won't read into that part too much. All right, GE versus Team Secret. Oh, man. Fact check. We don't know if Team Secret even has a coach. Like, we don't know what's going on here. That is true. The Philippines win no matter what and prove to the rest of the world once again that the Filipinos are truly the strongest gamers in the world. That is true. This is the match to prove that. You know, logic would say that Secret should win this, even if Global Esports looks good. Secret's always been very consistent. You know, Envy's someone who pops off. And I would say that I'm very excited to see Wild Wario again, which there are supposedly reports of him not being on the same flight for Predator League right now with the rest of the team. But I don't know what that means. But it's still a ways away for Pacific, so I'm sure it's fine. But I think Wild Wario is gonna climb even more in 2025 within Pacific. I think he's gonna enter much more in people's radars. So they're very strong, but it's like hard to escape from this mysterious hype that GE has right now. That's true. GE will be playing with Darion, so it is not their full roster, right? Hatriku is not going to be able to play during kickoff. It will be Darion coming in, and Yudotan will be playing Duelist, which I think that's not a bad thing. If anything, I think it could be a good thing. By the way, it was so refreshing to see people who hadn't really followed Crystal and Papi Chulo just understand why there's so much hype behind those two players. Like, those two are such clutch players. Yeah, and then I think Yudotan on Duelist, you know, he used to play Duelist. I think that's going to be fine. I think Darion as a Sentinel, it will work out, right? I think he's played so many different positions. You know, he's kind of filled the needs of the team for so long. I think he's able to do that now pretty seamlessly. And I don't think they're going to play a style where they, you know, it's like where they need a meteor, so to speak, right? Where the Sentinel has to kind of do so much more on his own. So I think GE looked pretty... Like, I think during the GE versus the World, like their own event, it didn't impress me too much. But that was also so early on that it was very clear that they were working with a very limited playbook. So I don't want to read into that too much. But... obviously, during Spotlight Series individually, they looked very good. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be the changing tides of the Philippines. The TS era is over. GE is the new Filipino team. No, this one is tough in my opinion. I think logic would state that Secret should still have the upper hand. But I think it's much closer to a 50-50 in my book. Right, we can't go to a lower bracket yet. Let's move on. Paper X versus T1. We're coming back to that because, quite frankly, I think these are the two teams that are probably going to go to Masters Bangkok. Spoilers. Let's go to Talon versus Global Esports. Now, here's the thing. If GE is beating Secret, are they beating Talon? I think Talon has the edge here, and here's why. I think again, a fresh meta really benefits Talon quite a bit. I think GE individually are very skilled, but I don't know if... Although, I don't know, man. Elevate also loves quirky comps, so they may not be as taken aback by anything that Talon and Frost pulls out. You know, that big brain of Elevate's might just be what gives them the buffer to be prepared. That's actually, this should be a fun matchup. Yeah, Frost versus Elevate on the coaching staff. Man, who is the bigger forehead? Who truly evolves into the 5-head of VCT Pacific? Yeah, and then obviously Juvenile as well. I mean, that's why he would pick up Elevate, right? To be on his coaching staff. So yeah, that's true. I think average-wise, individually, I think on average, GE is a bit more clutch. But I'm still willing to give Primi a bit more benefit of the doubt, everyone. Listen, I don't think I'm not riding the Primi hype like he's the next OS boss and whatever like that. I think that still needs some time to cook. No, I think Talon's gonna come. I think Talon's gonna come out swinging. They always rely on Primi. No, well, you see, it can look like that sometimes, but then you think back, they used to play without Primi. So did they only rely on Surf back then? I mean, definitely not, right? I mean, Surf carried some games for them for sure, but I think it's much more of they're trying to play to Primi's strengths for the time being. I don't think it's so much that we can't win if it's not for you. I think it's much more of okay, how do we make sure we play to his strengths because he's such a talented player? I mean, if it's GE, I think it's a toss-up. If it's Secret, I actually think Talon wins. But if it's GE, I think it really just depends on how GE looked against Secret and what the prep is for either team. This one, I'm not. So far, this is actually my least confident pick. Talon versus GE. Actually, no, that's not true. Nope, that's not true at all. It's probably GE Team Secret. But Talon, I'm going to go with Talon. Listen, I'm going to give them the credit. I know a lot of people hate their inconsistency. I call them out for their inconsistency for sure. I don't think they deliver as much as they say they are capable of doing, which I believe them. It's just it's not coming through on stage. But also, if you just look slightly under the covers, I mean, listen, they got to champions one way or another. And it wasn't just completely a fluke. Like, they won the matches that mattered. They were able to punch above their weight when it mattered. And I think with the time in the offseason, in theory, things should have gotten better, right? Which means that I would think that they would keep an edge over global esports. So Talon moves on. I'm gonna go with. So I'm torn here because I actually think PaperX is gonna come out looking like the best team in Pacific for kickoff. I do. I think I think the world that we live in currently for Valorant, it suits PaperX very much. I think the map pool suits them quite a bit. I think all the patches and such, it really pushes into their direction. I think PaperX is actually going to look like the strongest team, but I think T1 might be the team that can beat them because T1's looking really good. And also, I mean, don't read into this too much. I don't mean it as like a factual thing, like the end-all be-all. But Stax and Buzz are the guys who used to know exactly how to play against PaperX, like all the time, right? And then obviously, like Meteor was able to come up with ways to start to combat them and overcome them last year as well in his role as a Sentinel. So I think there's no longer that either of like, well, they'll still just run amok and eventually they'll get their way after a best of 3 and things like that. So, yeah, and I think Meteor is just so big. When playing against a team like T1, like PaperX, like if they can't just shut down Meteor, it gets just so much tougher. And I don't know if they'll have enough cooked up. PaperX, I think, are going to look different, though. I think they're going to look different coming in. But I think T1, listen, I have big hopes for T1. I do. I really have big hopes for T1. But I think PaperX is going to win the first best of 3. If they have a rematch, I think T1 wins. If they have a rematch, I think T1 wins. No, listen, I have big hopes for T1, but I think PaperX is going to look like the strongest team in Pacific for kickoff. I do. And listen, PaperX fans, feast. Because apparently I never say this about this team, which is just not true. But supposedly everyone thinks I just absolutely hate this team. So feast your eyes. This is like early grand finals, though. PaperX T1 right here. This is absolutely early grand finals material. Genji versus RQ. We'll save the best for last. DRX versus Nongshim. I'm going to go with Nongshim here. If it was a ton, I think I would be closer to a 50-50 on this one. But, and just so we're clear, I actually like the change to Bane for DRX. I do, and I don't think it was like a last-minute decision yesterday. I don't think they literally got together in a meeting room yesterday and said, let's add Bane. Obviously, I think this was in the works, and he's been with the team, and he's probably been scrimming with them, so I think that's fine. We'll see if he's grown. We'll see if he's matured. I think he struggled a lot when he was flustered. And in that sense, I don't think in this matchup specifically against Nongshim, he's necessarily going to be a strong upgrade from a ton. Now, otherwise, I think the team DRX still looks really good. I mean, Mako's freed up back to just playing controller and being able to clutch up. Freeing's IGLing looks pretty good. He looks very confident as well. He's willing to pick up different agents and roles, so that looks very promising. I think Hyunmin is really going to start to rise up as a new Korean duelist. I think he looks like he has a lot of promise for sure. So all in all, and then Flashback, Flashback is Flashback. I don't know if they're going to be prepared. I feel like Nongshim's going to pull out some fun things at kickoff. Surely they do. That's just been their MO, and it's a new meta, new map pool, potentially new agent. So I don't know if DRX can catch up to that fast enough. But this one, I think, is a 2-1 no matter how you cut it. This one's a 2-1 no matter how you cut it. But I'm big on Nongshim. I think they have the better momentum in the beginning part of the year. I think if this was like stage 2, obviously it would depend on how they looked, but I would be very inclined to pick DRX, actually. I think DRX is going to grow into a great team once again, chat. Just so we're very clear. I think DRX is going to look very promising. No, but Nongshim just looks so good. I'm so hyped up for this team. I'm so hyped for this team. I haven't been hyped up for a team like this since RRQ. And so Nongshim just they just look really good. They just look like such a strong like pentagon or hexagon or whatever you want to draw for like a stat sheet. Like Nongshim is legitimately good. They're legitimately a good team. It's not just because they like stomped Challengers Korea. It's not just because they stomped their way through the early brackets of Ascension, but it's how they did it and the times they got pushed. Their adaptations weren't just clutches. Yes, they won off of an insane clutch, right? With Persia, on Bind. Yes, that happens, but like those are the dramatic moments. Those aren't what actually carries them through the entire tournaments. Their adaptation round to round. It's how they're able to adapt without using timeouts. It's even then you go bigger macro. It's them picking, a weird Ascent comp just to do a one-off match against Riddle Order. They confirmed that. They confirmed that it was meant to be a one and done composition, right? So as I suspected, it was specifically just for that matchup against Riddle Order because normally they never play Ascent. This team is good, man. And then people are like, yeah, but Neon's got nerfed and Dom B, now he's going to be exposed as a Neon merchant. It was his jet originally that caught my eye. It's not like the greatest jet in the world, but his jet was very good. I mean, you got similar vibes, similar confidence levels. So the Neon allowed him to do crazy things, but it was also how the team played around the Neon, not just Dom B. I mean, he was crazy, but I think he's still going to be just fine. So I'm going to give it to Nongshim. Man, but you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying about this bracket? There's so many 50-50 matchups. There's so many 50-50 matchups. Like, this bracket is insane. I'm very curious how many people will have perfect brackets this time. Because I imagine it has to be a lower amount. I don't think it's going to go the way that anyone thought it would. So speaking of RRQ, I mean, I don't need to elaborate, right? Like, we're good? Moving on? Great. Excellent. I'm glad we're all in agreement. Thank you very much. RQ, moving on. Chat, you're all wrong. You guys have no idea what you're talking about. Go into the lower round. I'm not going to elaborate. Listen, if you don't know, if you still don't get it, if you've been following my channel and you still don't know, then you're a lost cause. I can't help you there. It's RQ. RQ's moving on. All right, looking at the lower bracket, DRX versus Boom Esports. Listen, this is where it stinks for Boom Esports because I do think that they can show more. But like, dude, having to play T1 and then DRX is just not a good start to your Pacific career. It doesn't matter if DRX has a new roster. Like, it's rough. Like, it's rough for Boom. And quite frankly, I mean, who's better? I don't know. I think Zeta Division would have been a better matchup, to be honest. I don't know if Zeta's the weakest team, but I do think that would have been a better matchup. So it's unfortunate for Boom, but I think it's just going to be an early exit in kickoff. There's not much to say there. Gen G Team Secret, yeah, we talked a lot about like Team Secret, how consistent are they, etc. And Gen G, yes, there's questions about, okay, I think everyone now has come around to the fact that Meteor was such a big part of how Gen G used to play. Foxy9 is struggling to find the same success, which I think is totally understandable because I think anybody in that position, in those shoes, would have done the same. I think Meteor did something very special for the entirety of 2024. So I don't think you can necessarily just say that Foxy9 isn't good enough. I think it's much more a way of not everyone can do that. So now either can you train Foxy9 to be that way, which I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. But then it's a question of, okay, how do you adapt the rest of the team and your defaults and your philosophy of each round around what Foxy9 is capable of? I'm actually still pretty high on Yeoman. It seems like a lot of people are still kind of questioning that move as well. But I'm still pretty high on Yeoman and then I think Foxy9, I'm mild on Foxy9, but I think it's much less a Foxy9 problem. I think it's much more a, how does the team adapt to a new roster? All right, moving on. Global Esports versus DFM. Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay, first of all, T1 Zeta. I don't need to expand, right? It's really unfortunate. I was so excited for Zeta Division's roster, to be honest. It just seemed very not impressive. It didn't seem bad. It didn't look like a bad roster change. It just didn't impress, whereas everybody else did. I think that's the story of Pacific and kind of the whole world this year, is that it's not that any roster change looked bad. It's just that there's so many great roster changes that are looking better and better during the offseason that if you're not impressing, it's hard to get behind your change. GE versus DFM. I'm gonna go with DFM. I'm gonna ride the May hype train just a bit longer. I'm going to ride the May hype train just a bit longer. Like, I'm big on Crystal and Papi Chulo. That's been known. I've talked about them time and time again. So I get it. It's not that I think, like, GE doesn't have the firepower. They absolutely do, in spades as well. But, like, I just want to believe one more time that May truly is built a little bit different. And then that will allow DFM to keep functioning as a team. And maybe GE has to spend more rounds, like, figuring out how to adjust to that. Honestly, I sound like I'm grasping at straws because I kind of am. But, no, this is such a hype matchup if it happens, though. This is such a hype matchup if it happens. Like, two very promising rosters for, two teams that were just kind of down in the dumps with coming in with just hot rosters right off the press. Man, and then in an elimination match, whoa, that's a story. That's a story for a matchup right there. All right, lower bracket DRX versus Gen G. Jeez, listen, somebody separate these two. Oh, who wins here? Who wins here? Oh man, who? Oh boy, I'm gonna go with Gen G. I'm very hopeful for DRX's roster, but it is kickoff. And then I think about 1-1. So we're looking at Foxy9 versus Flashback. I do think Flashback edges him out here. Right? Charon versus Mako is tough now that Mako's freed up again, but I mean, I don't know. I've never really been big on the Mako is #1 controller no matter what in Pacific. That whole narrative, I was never big on that. So I have no regrets saying this, but I do think just straight up individually, I think Charon is just a step ahead. Munchkin versus Freeing. That's a matchup I would want to see, actually, the IGLing. I wonder if Freeing can try to keep up, because I feel like he might be able to. Munchkin is there. Texture versus Hyunmin. Hyunmin looks very promising, but it is texture, so you rate texture. Yeah, so at that point, right? Like, and then Yeoman versus Bane, I would put Yeoman slightly above. So yeah, individually, but I think it's much more of like a DRX definitely seemed to have potential type of deal. And then coaching staff as well. Both of them legendary. But yeah, Solo and HSK, and then now with Perry, like they're really starting to build themselves up as great coaches. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll go with Gen G. DFM versus T1. But they can't play Ascent anymore. It's over. It's over, DFM bros. It's over. No, can you imagine, though? Can you imagine if DFM did it again? Like, if it was the same team again? Can you imagine? There's no way. Like, I mean, DFM look good, but there's no way. There's no way. No way. No. There's no way. No, listen, T1 is looking like T1 is looking prime, okay? T1 is looking so good right now. T1 is just looking prepped, just ready to go. All right. This is some AAA grade Valorant waiting for us right here for T1. Okay? All right? It's no, this is I'm sorry for DFM, but it's T1, man. No, surely not. This is a different T1. This is a different T1. Totally different T1. No, don't even try to bring your curses and your history. All right. Moving on. PaperX versus Talon. Listen, again, I stand by the fact that I think PaperX is going to come in looking like one of the strongest, if not just the definitive strongest team during kickoff specifically. So I think PaperX is going to look good here. Oh, wait. Oh, man. But my narrative. Oh, no. Wait, how do I rig this? How do I make sure it happens? How do I make sure this is just a preview of the grand finals, chat? Run through the multiverses with me. What are the possibilities? They weren't meant to meet this early. I'm just too big on Nongshim. I also think the way that Nongshim play, again, this is all going off the past, right? And I'm hoping, a big part of me is hoping that RQ has changed. A big part of me is hoping that they have changed. I do think it's very possible for them to have changed. So we're hoping that they've changed, but RQ relatively easily gets drawn into their opponent's game. You know what I mean? They get baited into playing the opponent's game. They get baited into playing fast pace against PaperX. They get baited into playing fast pace against Talent. Like they do this. And that's why I keep saying, like, they just need to have a stronger foundation on, like, what is our philosophy. If you want to play fast, that's fine. Like, if you want that to be your go-to philosophy of how you understand Valorant, that's fine. But you need to have your own philosophy, because otherwise, like, that's exactly why PaperX used to beat pretty much every team they face, is because they would just put their foot down and be like, no, you're playing our game, because we're playing at this speed, and you've never done that before. Obviously, most teams around the world have now figured that out against PaperX, and it doesn't work as well anymore. But I think RQ struggles with that a bit, and I think Nongshim is very capable of manipulating that. So we're gonna send Nongshim. I'm a changed man, but there is a lower bracket, so we'll see what happens. Oh wait, hold on, hold up. Wait, hold up. Okay, wait, no, hold on. Wait. No. Okay, we need to change the threads of fate, chat. No. We need to go into the past. Where did it all go wrong? Where can we ensure that RQ is able to make a lower bracket run? Chat. Maybe RQ needs to lose to Genji just one more time for the greater good. There's a pattern here, right? It's gonna sting, but you lose to Genji one more time, and then you make the lower bracket run. Why is it only 2 teams? Okay, moving on. Genji versus Talon. Oh, this is actually a good chance for Talon to beat Genji. Yeah. But I have faith in the coaching. I have faith in the coaching of Genji. It's not anything against Frost. I just think Solo and HSK are so good at making sure their team understands the counter analysis mid game. Munchkin's pretty good about it as well. I do think Talon's gonna give them a tough objective though, because it's very clear that Frost had a very good understanding of what was making Genji very good. So I think they're going to be able to really push where it hurts for Genji in this matchup, where you can kind of force comms breakdowns, right? Like Foxy9 is probably going to get giga targeted in this match. Dude, Primmy's going to be ego peeking that guy like nonstop in this matchup. So Genji's got to watch out, I think. I think they're just going to hammer it home against Foxy9. Yeah, no, they are just going to find out where Foxy is and just Just absolutely make him miserable for ever wanting to play Valorant. So they need to be prepared for that. I think there needs to be a lot of support for Foxy9 in this matchup. Because Talon aren't afraid. They're not afraid to be the bad guys. They're not afraid to be like, well, whatever. Like, you want to hate us? You want to say that we were absolute jerks? Like, got us to win. Got us to win. So, and that's not even like being a jerk. I mean, that's just identifying strengths and weaknesses. So, as long as but I think they'll be able to do that. I think it's much more on Foxy9 having the mental training fortitude to not break down. RQ versus T1. Last year I was very big on T1 and it didn't go very well. Maybe I shouldn't make the same mistake. Maybe they need a little bit more time to cook. Maybe the comms and they're coming from different teams, mixing DRX and Gen G styles of play. Sylvan hasn't been playing pro for a little while. They might need some time. RQ, if you're watching, I know you are actually. Just listen. It's not you. It's not you. It's just T1 has an absolute chokehold over the entire nation of Korea, okay? It's not you. Okay, you're still the same RRQ that I remember and love. And I won't forget. I'll buy the new bundle. All right? But it's T1. Oh, T1 looks so... Oh, I'm so scared. T1 looks so good. Oh my gosh. RQ actually really just needed to lose to Gen G one more time. What if that's really what was needed? What if they finally beat Gen G and that's what ruins the bracket for RQ? Can you imagine? Man. This hurts. This hurts. All right, PaperX versus Nongshim. Let's go. Let's freaking go. This is it. This is VCT Pacific. This is, oh man. Like, this is what we live for. This is what we watch Pacific for right here. I don't know this one. This one I actually have no idea. Because I keep saying PaperX I think are going to look the definitive best, but man. No, I'm like uncharacteristically big on PaperX for kickoff though. Nongshim's exciting. Yes, the undefeated streak, the storyline, it's all there. It's so exciting. But I think this is right. And I think it's a good place for Nongshim to finally get a defeat. Right? Kind of just, it's a very nice, proper wake-up call. I think it's going to be a very even matchup. I do think the calling on Nongshim is better. The reason I find it tough is just because I think one of the reasons, right? So everyone always asks, like, why is Nongshim so much higher than Boom Esports? One of the big reasons I would rate them high is because they're really good at set plays. They're really good at using their utility in set pieces, but they're very good at changing that tempo, right? It doesn't always have to be like, oh, we have to set up for 10 seconds and we get this information. Like, they can do the same set piece on the fly. And I think that gives them a pretty strong edge against PaperX, where set pieces are usually what ruins them, but their tempo is what is able to counter that. And I think Nongshim's pretty good about that. The other question I have, we didn't get to talk about this, but I am a little concerned about Margaret. And I wonder how many teams will try to target him, like we said, a Talon might against Foxy9. I was big on Margaret in the first half of their stage 2 last year in Challengers Korea, but I do think he can end up being a weak link if he hasn't really kind of bunkered down on the mental fortitude aspect. Now, eventually, like, he still gets his job done. Like, even if he's not fragging, he gets the job done, and the team works around the info he gets very well. So it's not to say that I think like he's the one who's like going to lose them games, but like a team like PaperX, though, they start targeting one side, attack or defense, it can get really tough. So I think I am curious about that, but we'll put PaperX forward. No, he played Yoru too. He played Killjoy and Yoru at Ascension Pacific. His Yoru was very funny to watch. It was very fun. So this means PaperX go. Oh, this is a qualifying match, by the way. This means PaperX goes to Masters Bangkok. Nongshim, they'll have one more chance. Oh man, show a LCK fan this bracket to give him a heart attack. Oh man. T1 Gen G, and the winner gets to fight Nongshim Red Force. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Oh man. Okay. I mean, this one, with everything I've said, right? T1, I think they just look much stronger right now. I think over the course of the year, the coaching on Gen G can make a difference, and the core, right? And so that synergy can make a difference. But during kickoff, like in kickoff, in my mind, it's like Paper X T1 is like absolute favorites, and then Gen G is just there because they're so strong and consistent. But like out of the top 3 favorites, like Paper X and T1 are a cut above for sure. Dude, Stax was starved on international stage for a full year. You better believe that he is back in it to just prove everything in this kickoff. He is not missing this chance. They're just in a really good position. I think T1's starting very strong. How well they can keep up and continue to grow is a different question, but I think they're starting very strong. And I think already during the offseason, they've shown to us that they understand why each of their players were great in their previous teams. Like, they played to their strengths and they've made that work. Whereas Gen G needs to retool a bit more. Over time, I think Gen G actually will overtake T1, most likely. But currently, I think T1 is very clearly a step above. And that means T1 versus Nongshim. This is another banger if it happens. T1 versus Nongshim in a BO5. Okay, let's think individually. Dombey versus Buzz. Dombey is amazing, but Buzz has that fire in him. Margaret versus Meteor. Meteor clears. Sorry, Margaret. I like Margaret, but Meteor's just, he's so goated right now. Stax versus Francis. Oh, that one I think is a 50-50 in my opinion. And then Izu versus Ivy. I'm a huge Izu fan, and I think over time Izu's going to become a great player, but I might actually rate Ivy above. And then Persia versus Sylvan. Oh, this was a mistake. Thinking of it individually was a mistake. Oh, man. Individually, to me, Nongshim comes out just ever slightly above. But the value Meteor provides to a team that he's on that is able to utilize him properly is just so big. And I just do not think Margaret can provide that same value. And at that point, Nongshim will have to invest more to counter that value, which they will do. I have faith that they'll do that. But I think that starts to take away some of the other things. Yeah, I mean, as a team, the thing is both of them, I think, are very good in their own rights. I think Nongshim has proven a bit more, but we've seen more of them as a full team than T1. But I think T1 is taking this one. Oh, yeah, which means it just brings me back to my 2 favorites, which I'm not mad about in any sense, because I think this, honestly, I do think no matter what order, I think this is the most reasonable result. Quite frankly, I think T1 wins the second time around. Listen, Paper X has 2 map bans. It's just, I'm never gonna let that go. It's not true anymore either, but I'm never gonna let it go. They can't win. They've got 2 map bans. It's their kryptonite. Paper X just can't win at that point. I think T1 will take a best of 5. Actually, no, I take that back. I think Paper X is gonna win it. I think the finals will be exciting, but I think Paper X will win. I don't think it'll be a 3-0. I think it could be a 3-2. But I think Paper X will win it. Yeah, I just think the current status of the game, the meta, everything, it suits them so well that I think they don't have to stretch too much to come looking fresh, and they've already started expanding their style. So I think that already puts them, it just gives them a head start, in my opinion, on what you need to work on, right? Whereas T1, I think, needs a lot more to build upon. So that means Paper X wins both, which I think is fine. I think that's reasonable. Paper X, first seed for Pacific, going to Masters Bangkok. T1 will be going to another international stage. Stacks will be returning to a international tournament in over a year now, and the Meteor will teach him how to lift a trophy. Cool. Well, this is our bracket. All right. I've broken some hearts. I've burned some bridges, but that's how it goes. So we got T1 and Paper X both from the upper side of the bracket. They'll eventually move all the way through. We do have RRQ making a bit of a deeper run this time around, but I'm just too big on Nongshim. As much as I have actually quite a bit more hopium for DRX compared to a lot of fans, it seems. It just looks like the bracket just doesn't favor them. But, you know, it's better than Boom's bracket, or Zeta's for that matter. It's rough for those two teams. GE, I do have them winning one match, but again, just every team looks so good in Pacific this time around. It's tough to make that call. That is going to be it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Which one of these matches is the craziest choice that I made? Right? And it's not the one you guys think it is. You guys just don't see the light yet. All right. So anything other than the Gen G RQ match, let me know what you think is the craziest prediction that I made in this bracket. And of course, feel free to share your brackets or your top two as well. That will be going to Masters Bangkok. The season or the kickoff starts on January 18th for Pacific. So a little less than 2 weeks. And then we'll follow along. We'll be sure to have watch parties here as well. For any of the days that I am able to do so. So make sure that you're subscribing here on YouTube and also follow over on Twitch to be able to catch the matches along live and join us for the ride. We'll see how this all shakes up once VCT Pacific kickoff begins. We'll see you then.